Okay, thank you. Yeah, I don't see Councillor Goodhouse either, nor Youth Councillor Nog. So let's give it just a moment. And there's Councillor Goodhouse. All right. And still no Youth Councillor Nog, correct? Okay. I'm going to get us started. I will call this Tigard City Council, Town Center Development Agency, and Local Contractor Review Board meeting to order. City Recorder Krager, roll call, please.
Councillor Shaw. Councillor Shaw.
Here.
Mayor Snyder.
Here.
Youth Councillor Nog. Not yet. Councillor Goodhouse.
Yes.
Councillor Newton.
Here.
Oh, Youth Councillor Nog. I see you now. Council President Lube.
Here.
You.
All right. I will have everyone join me in the Pledge of Allegiance on their own. Please mute yourself. Mr. Nollop, please put the flag up on the screen. All right, thank you, Mr. Nollop. And Councillor Staff, any non-agenda items?
Nothing from us, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Let's move on to proclamations and recognition, and I'm going to add one here. I think the whole City Council would like to recognize Youth Councillor Nog for the amazing forum that she hosted, I would say, and held yesterday at Tigard High School. We even had I shouldn't claim we did. She had the Secretary of State speaking along with a bunch of members of the school board, city council, state representatives, state senators, and then the Tigard City Council. And it was just a great event. Want to recognize that. And then at the end had a voter registration drive. So Youth Councillor Nog, thank you. I know that it definitely took a lot of effort in organizing and was very successful. And I think we had some great engaging discussions that I know were enlightening for many of the elected officials that attended. So thank you. All right. On proclamations and recognitions, we're planning to proclaim April as Arbor Month. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mayor. I move to approve proclaiming April as Arbor Month. I'm sorry, Council President Loop, I just saw your hand raised.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, please conduct a roll call vote, starting with Youth Councilor Nog for an advisory vote.
Youth Councilor Nog,
Yes.
Councilor Shaw,
Yes.
Mayor Snyder,
Yes.
Councilor Goodhouse,
Yes.
Councilor Newton,
Yes.
Council President Lube.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes unanimously. April is Arbor Month. Let's move on to second proclamation, proclaiming April 22nd, 2022 as Community Emergency Response Team Day. Is there a motion? Councilor Shaw.
I had a question before the motion, but should I make a motion and then ask the question?
No, go ahead with the question. Sorry, if I had thought there might be one, I would have given you that opportunity earlier. So please take it now.
No problem. I think it's wonderful. I think we actually should completely have a CERT day. I was just wondering if it was intentional to do it on Earth Day. So I don't know if we want CERT to have their own day or if we should go ahead and have it on Earth Day. I have no issue either way, just was asking.
Yeah, these are frequently nationally planned. So I guess I would go to the staff. Who's the staff lead on this, Mr. Rager, or I doubt Mr. Lewick is online, or City Manager Reimer. Do you know whether, I mean, I know it overlaps this year, it looks like, but is that the official day? I would think.
Mr. Mayor, Brian Rager here. I am not sure. I'm sorry. I don't have the answer for you on that one.
Okay. Mr. Reimer, who's the staff person that brought this? Maybe they can answer that question for Councilor Shaw.
I think it'd be best if we try to follow up here and get the answer for you, if that's all right, as part of the meeting.
Councilor Shaw, are you comfortable with moving forward?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And unless Councilor President Lube would like to make the motion. Okay. I move to approve proclaiming April 22nd, 2022 as Community Emergency Response Team Day, otherwise known as CERT.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, please conduct a roll call vote, starting with Youth Councilor Nog for an advisory vote.
Youth Councilor Nog,
Yes.
Councilor Shaw,
Yes.
Mayor Snyder,
Yes.
Councilor Goodhouse,
Yes.
Councilor Newton,
Yes.
Council President Lube.
Yes.
All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to public comment. Anyone that wishes to make public comment can do so by calling in to the council meeting at 503-966-4101. Those with general comments should call in now to get in the queue. Those with testimony on our 2 budget supplemental hearings should wait until those items are announced by me on the agenda and then call in at the beginning of those times. Again, 503-966-4101. Assistant City Manager Nyland, any follow-up to previous public comment?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. At the April 5th council meeting, we received 14 written public comments about a property on Ann Street, and those were all received between March 16th and April 5th. And then we received 2 more through our web form. And those were in support of the property owners that have been discussed previously. We had 6 callers with 7 speakers. One caller was from a joint household, so they offered 2 different to different testimony, and the majority of callers also provided written comments. So each constituent did receive a receipt of acknowledgement from our team or a follow-up phone call. So that is the report as far as public comment. For my fun fact, I believe you know what's coming. We are in the 23rd day of spring, and just a few days ago, temperatures hovered in the mid-70s. We wore sunscreen. So this week, meaning yesterday, we received our first measurable snowfall in April that has ever been recorded in history. Some of our neighbors received up to 7 inches of snow in this very unusual spring storm. For those who took advantage of the earlier warm weather, me, and tended to their gardens, planting flowers, fear not. Most likely we did not receive enough freezing temperatures long enough to do extensive damage. And this strange event has allowed the opportunity to continue skiing until mid-May, and perhaps fire season will be delayed. Fingers crossed. So PS, we may get more snow tonight or tomorrow. It was snowing in Clackamas County about 10 minutes ago. And lastly, thank you for recognizing Arbor Month. I have a feeling many arborists will be quite busy right now. So that is my report from this evening. Thanks for your time. Stay warm, be safe, and be kind.
Thank you very much. All right, our next report out in public comment is going to be from Tigard High School student envoy, Elise Butera. Are you with us this evening? City Recorder Krager, did you get any notice about her attendance or not?
Mr. Mayor, I did not hear from her this week.
Okay. Youth Councilor Nog, anything you either want to report or any update you may know about whether we could expect Elise later?
I don't. I could text her really quickly if that would help.
Sure, if you want to do that, we'll move on to Chief McAlpine's report out, and then you can let us know where and if we may receive an update from Elise. All right, Chief McAlpine.
Oh, I think Youth Councilor Nog has something else.
Sorry, Youth Councilor Nog.
Sorry. If Elise doesn't make it, do you want me to do a quick wrap up about Tigard High?
Sure, if you'd like to. Go ahead, Chief.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Chief Kathy McAlpine for the March dashboard. If you've had a chance to take a look at the entire dashboard, especially on the front page, you know there's no good news in that front page. It is lit up with nothing but red, with the exception of self-initiated calls, which, you know, means it's down, and that means we haven't had time to do any proactive or as much proactive as we'd like. I almost want to say, where do I begin? But I have highlighted assaults. As you can see, there are 60. We did a deep dive, or I would like to give credit to our crime analyst, Gala Christopher. She did a deep dive in all of the assaults. What you see is a common theme of really frustrated people who are taking it out on various businesses and employees. These are often confrontations regarding either some frustrations, lack of waiting for service, etc., on and on. And I think people are just very much in a short fuse. That seemed to be the common theme. But 4 of them rise to the level of some verbal negative comments that we coded as bias crime. Moving on to our vehicles, stolen vehicles. Again, they continue to be on pace, tracking higher. And again, the common themes we're seeing is those, when we've been able to make arrests, there are individuals who have known to be participating in the drug trade or use of drugs. Paraphernalia is often found either by us or the vehicle owners upon the recovery of their vehicles. So again, some really poor behavior on our folks. Dispatch calls are you can see they continue to climb, 13% so far this year. And our officers, especially our swing shift officers, are going call to call. I think you've also received some communication from frustrated community members. I know I have. I know the city manager's office has, that some of our quality of life crimes don't appear to be taken as serious. I think it's unfortunately more of a, they're just, the officers are overwhelmed and going call to call. And perhaps the service level isn't as high as it has been in the past. And we'll continue to do our due diligence and empathy when people are experiencing a crime and want to report, or a neighbor dispute might be one of them. But part of it is that our officers are not getting to spend the kind of time that we are known for in the past. The other is, you know, priority 1 and 2 calls, you know, it was a little bit better. I had intended to highlight a particular day on a Sunday when we had 3 priority 2 calls come out in a span of about 3 minutes. All 3 reported with a weapon, which exhausted both. Day shift was thankfully still on because this happened about 2 p.m. And we utilized a lot of our partner agencies as well to handle all 3 calls. But that just kind of highlights some of the things that are going on. The other part I wanted to mention, I didn't highlight it in the slide, but theft is also up 111% and 93% trending this year so far. Again, a deeper dive is, we know we have more active loss prevention employees out there, but we're also seeing our shoplifters are far more aggressive. They're carrying guns, bear spray, they've made threats. We attempted to contact one suspect vehicle at Costco, only to have the vehicle on up when the officers approach to ram both cars and eluded us. And so this is a type of aggressive behavior we are observing. March alone of reported theft of commercial businesses is about 250,000. Recovery is about 4,500. So you can see our businesses are bearing the brunt of some of this thefts that are going on. With that, you know, I think you all received a communication that the jail is now pretty much back to normal. Again, that's great news for those that we can hold accountable. The other part of this we'll wait and see is how long do they stay, as opposed to turning around and getting back out and causing problems. Happy to answer any questions. Right now, we're just trying to get our head above water. I do have a very senior lateral officer who is returning back to his home state. So we've given a conditional offer on an entry level, but as you've heard me say, we're talking 18 months to get them through the academy and trained. And we have 2 more in the academy and 2 more that are slated to go to the academy in the fall, just waiting for slots. And that is my very riveting presentation to all of you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief. I would just say, I mean, my guttural reaction when I looked at the latest report is all the red, but particularly around the person crimes. I mean, those are real things happening to real people. I don't like property crime either, but the person crimes are really, really bothersome to me. Looking at that trend and the impact that's having on our community. And I guess I just want to acknowledge that and say, you know, I don't know if you've got any sort of suggested different strategies or things we should try to do differently, but as a community, but that's just really concerning to me.
Yeah, and rightly so. And that's the deep dive. And so when you look at the information, you're not talking about 1 or 2 people causing this problem, which we could then, you know, put our full attention to. These are, you know, some domestics. Majority of them are a confrontation at a business. Some are unhoused individuals, but not all of them. Some are those under the influence of drugs or alcohol. And then there are some that are just people are flat out angry and aggressive to business owners or employees. And these are a variety of different businesses. So again, not one location, not one theme, but we'll continue to deep dive and anytime that we can, and some arrests have been made. So not everybody got away with everything, but it is certainly concerning, but more challenging is the fact that there is no pattern, there is no trend. It is just, if anything, it's a societal trend of how people are behaving right now. And again, the aggressiveness that we've seen, both even towards law enforcement, that was not the first time we had been rammed when somebody tried to go. Another person we thought we had completely surrounded and went up a steep embankment that we thought was a nice barrier. So people are getting aggressive, even trying to get away from us.
Councillor Newton.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things. Chief, I really appreciate the deep dive that you're doing. And if there's any information that you can share with the council in terms of any actions that we could encourage or communications with the public in terms of, you know, once you're looking into these situations, things that they can watch out for, anything we can do working with businesses to help them. So not to put it all on the force, but you know, anything we can do to be in communication with our community would be great. And also appreciation to the officers that are going call to call, you know, so want to express that. And then I also wanted to point out, we received recently, changing the subject, a report from Community Service Officer Peterson and all the work that he's doing with our houseless community members. And just wanted to let the community know that his efforts are making a difference in the lives of some of the folks that are out there, and also some of the campgrounds that are in places where, you know, they're in sensitive lands areas. That's not a good place for the environment, nor for the individuals, because those areas flood. So just wanted to call that out. So appreciate the report and kudos to the department for looking into these issues with a deep dive, so we can try to make sense of it and try to change the trend if we can. Thanks, Chief.
I appreciate that, and I will definitely let CSO Peterson know. As you can see, though, anytime that we can put dedicated resources, we usually have pretty good outcomes. This shotgun approach right now for some of these thefts and assaults, our commercial crimes unit has had some great success, but the volume is outpacing their ability to investigate all of them at the same time. So, but I will pass that along, and thank you.
All right, and then I think I saw our student envoy, Elise Butera, on the line a moment ago. I think I saw her on camera.
Hi, I apologize for coming late. I hope you guys can hear me all right. I just couldn't find the link. But I'm very excited to talk about what's going on at Tigard High School. We just actually had our senior assembly, the first in-person senior assembly we've had in 2 years, which is crazy. They gave us information on graduation because we're going to be having an in-person graduation. Also just gave us kind of tidbits on making sure that our grades are up to par with graduation standards, obviously, because I feel like because of the COVID standards, like a lot of people just kind of have been slacking. So it was a good little reminder. Our Voices Assembly, which I did think I mentioned a few meetings ago, is now set for April 19th, which is very, can you guys still, sorry, the service is bad where I am, but is set for April 19th, which is super exciting. We have enough speakers now to make it a successful assembly because, as I shared before, Voices is a very important thing where the student body just gets to hear about the different stories and experiences so many of our student body goes through without a lot of us knowing. And lastly, we're getting ready for a new election season within leadership. I've heard through whispers that a lot of people are going to be joining advanced leadership this year, which is super exciting because it was kind of a issue getting people in the past, but it seems like a lot of people are excited to join student leadership, which will be exciting but competitive. And a lot of our ASBs are graduating out, so we're going to be looking for people to fill in our positions. So yeah, that's a bit on Tigard right now. And our spring sports are back in season. Our softball team is doing absolutely amazing, as they always do. Don't really know much about baseball, and our track team's always great. Yeah.
Elise, thank you so much, and appreciate the report out. So many interesting and exciting things going on at the high school, and appreciate you doing such a great job this year, and we'll see you next month.
Awesome. Bye, you guys. Thank you. Bye, John. Thanks for texting me.
All right. Let's see. We are going to move on to a report out from Tigard Area Chamber of Commerce CEO Debbie Mollhan. And for our community who may not know, Debbie's been the CEO of the Tigard Chamber since 2009. And I believe this Friday is her last day at the Tigard Chamber. She's retiring after, I think, you coming to the chamber was kind of like you failed retirement once, right? And came back into the workforce. So now you're not going to fail retirement a second time, I don't think. But in all seriousness, Debbie, it has been an absolute pleasure working with you my entire time as a city councilor, council president, and then mayor for 4 years. Your partnership and advocacy for the business community has been really incredible. And I think I've spoken about this before, but not in this venue or forum, that you are just as much a doer as a leader as you are a facilitator, and all you got to do is watch an event that the chamber or that Debbie's involved in managing, and she is there with a walkie-talkie on, looking all sweaty, got her work boots on, and has been working hard. And that happens at every event I see you working at. And I just really appreciate all the work that you've done over the many, many years. And our business community is way better off because of you. And so thank you. And I think other members of the council may want to say something as well. Councilor Newton.
Yes, I was working on staff when Debbie became the executive director of the chamber, and things changed pretty quickly. I mean, Debbie had a tremendous amount of energy and creativity, and something would come before the chamber that people would scratch their heads, and all of a sudden Debbie came up with something and we were off. And so I just always admired your resilience, your creativity, your energy. I just was always amazed at how many different ways you could see to take on something and make a difference for our business community. So I'm going to just say you were just a joy to watch. So thank you for everything you did for the Tigard business community and the Tigard community. And, you really did make a difference for our community. So thank you so much. And I have a card for you. I'll bring it.
All right, so we will go to Council President Lube, then Councilor Goodhouse, and then Councilor Shaw.
Thank you. I've been fortunate enough to be able to work with you for the last almost 3.5 years since I've been on council, and it's been an incredible experience to work in partnership with you. And you've really done an incredible job for our city. You care so deeply. You developed our Leadership Tigard program, which I'm going through, and the way that you develop the future leaders of our city in the business atmosphere is it's incredible. And we're so lucky to have you. And I'm excited for your retirement, but I'm sad that we won't be able to work with you in that sort of way. So thank you for what you've done for our community and our business community. And Tigard has just been really lucky to have you.
Thank you.
And again, I echo what everyone said. Debbie, thank you for all your work, and also a lot of the work that's done behind the scenes that you've done for businesses, especially during the pandemic. There's a lot of behind the scenes things we are doing with letters to the legislators, to the governor, really fighting for those businesses that are closed or those ones that couldn't be open. And through the years, that's a big part of what you've done that a lot of people may not see as much. They've seen you active out in their community or at Main Street events, but there's been a lot of the side with policy in the background that you've worked on and fought for businesses. And that's really what the chamber's about, is to be there for the business community, to help that interaction between business community and the citizens, but to really make sure that we have a strong and prospering business community in Tigard. And you've done that, and you're going to leave it in a great place. And I thank you for all your work, and best of luck in retirement.
Thank you, John.
And Debbie, to round it out, you've done such an amazing job for the city, and you've been such a great champion for business. And I'm glad you failed retirement in 2009 and got to assist us in all those endeavors. Hopefully you have an amazing time in retirement. I do understand where you're going. Actually has maybe an executive director position or board positions available. So who knows, maybe you'll end up in your third retirement, but thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So I just want to say that I know the chamber and myself really appreciates the relationship that we have built both with the electeds, with the city of Tigard, as well as key staff that we've worked with in partnership over the years, you know, making sure that the business voice is heard on issues that you guys are looking at or trying to be informed about as you're making decisions. And so I feel very fortunate that I hear stories from my chamber peers across the nation and even within Oregon that a lot of times their chamber relationship with their city council and the senior staff within the city sometimes isn't always good. And sometimes there's a lot of drama and sometimes it's very fractious. And I've really appreciated the fact that throughout my career, I've always had a really good working relationship with city council, with the mayors, with the council presidents. And so I just want to say, I hope you guys continue this partnership with the chamber. Barbara, who is following in my footsteps, and I think is going to be a great leader, really wants to lean into our advocacy role and continue to take that to the next level, whether it's just those letters of support like John was talking about, or whether it's the continued running of our candidate endorsement process. So hopefully you'll give her as much support as you've given me, and thank you all very much. So while we're on the topic, they are throwing me a retirement party on May 11th at the Broadway Rose from 5:30 to 7:30. You should all be getting an invite. Jessica is coordinating that. She told me she didn't want any help from me other than to give her some invite lists. So that should be coming out fairly soon. So I hope to see you all there. We specifically did not do it on a Tuesday night so that council could attend. So it's on a Wednesday night. And so I'm looking
Will roasting be allowed?
Well, yes, apparently. I was asked if I wanted to specifically have a roast, and I'm like, well, no, but I know it's going to happen. So we'll just go with that. Yes. So I'm sure there will be. I know there's plans afoot. I just don't know what they are. So I'm just prepared for anything, like we learned today in our improv exercises, right, Heidi? We just have to be flexible and adaptable and prepare for anything. So all of staff, so the new CEO and Jessica, as well as Danny, who's another member of our team, they're all in Hood River at a 2-day Oregon State Chamber Conference, learning lots. The new CEO is meeting lots of her chamber peers. So I'm hoping they're going to come back with some great information and really be able to implement those things within the chamber and the business community. So here's my swan song, because Jessica's been doing these updates to you guys for the last, I want to say 3 or 4 years, probably. So she says, can you do this for me? I'm like, that would make sense that I do it as kind of my last parting thing. So I'm here to give you an update about the chamber, about the farmers market, and then I'll also put some things in about what the TDA has going on in downtown Tigard. So we had Leadership Tigard today, as Council President Lou mentioned, and today was Leadership Tools and Skills Day. It's kind of a new day that we implemented last year. And so Dr. Sue kicked it off for us on a presentation on leading through change. And if you've never heard her speak, she's a very entertaining but yet very thought-provoking speaker. We kind of added a new element, and we had new narrative come in and talk about developing mental wellness resiliency as leaders, as well as how do you create that space for your team? What are some practices you can put in place to really be addressing the mental wellness of your team, and really helping us unpack what does that all look like. So that was great. We did some improv theater, as we talked about, because as a leader, you need to be able to flex because stuff never goes to plan. And then our last 3 hours we spent with Dr. Kevin Bates, and he took us through learning at a very high level about what social emotional learning is and how we can implement some other tools as leaders within our workplace, particularly focused on helping people be okay with sharing what's actually going on in their lives, and so you can develop a better team. So that was a pretty exciting day. And May and June days are going to be coordinated, or not coordinated, but Jessica will be leading that. The other cool thing is Chief McAlpine and Halstead brought to the Leadership Tiger class. They have to do a service project every year as part of their program. And so with the umbrella of CHART, the chief brought a proposed project to the Leadership Tiger class. And they are partnering with the City of Tigard and with Just Compassion, and they're putting on an ID event to assist community members with renewing, replacing, and applying for an ID card. And that's going to be at the Tigard Public Library on April 20th from noon to 3 p.m. So excited about that. Again, business and city coming together and actually doing something good for our community members. So very excited about that project. Registration is now open for Tigard Restaurant Month. For restaurants that want to participate. So this is second annual. This was Jessica's brainchild last year in the middle of a pandemic to try to help our restaurant community get some more traction. So food trucks, food stands, bars, pubs, and restaurants are able to participate if they're within our zip codes of 97223 and 224. So that is open and it will run the entire month of June. So just be watching our Facebook feed and other kinds of things for more information on that. We'd like you to save the date. One of our downtown businesses, who's also a chamber member, Nerds2Go, is going to be having a ribbon cutting on May 5th at 2 p.m. in downtown Tigard. This is Rory's second location. His original location was in Milwaukee, and he was just named Franchisee of the Year at the most recent conference that he went to a couple weeks ago. So that's a tremendous accomplishment. So hats off to him. A reminder that this year we're actually having our Shining Stars Community Awards Gala live for the first time in 3 years. It's been virtual for the last 2 years, and that is on April 29th at 5:30 at Embassy Suites, Washington Square. So hopefully you've bought your tickets, and if you haven't bought your tickets, please buy your tickets. We're going to be celebrating community members, volunteerism, business excellence, and we're going to be giving away some money to some deserving senior high school students in the form of scholarships. Be live music, dinner, awards, and great company. So save that date on your calendar. For those listening that are interested in connecting with the chamber when it comes to networking and meeting other like-minded business professionals, please join us for our Thursday AM networkings that start at 7:30. It's called Good Morning Tigard. It will be hosted this Thursday by the Tigard Farmers Market. And we actually have a new market manager, and the week after that will be hosted by Nerds2Go, and then there's some open dates. So if you're interested in checking out what we do when we network and meeting some other business professionals, check out our website and you'll find out where the networking is located. Farmers Market, we are going to be opening our 30th season on May 1st. So this is actually a really long season for us. I think there's maybe 28 Sundays this year. And we're going to run it through the end of October. So it's Sundays from 9 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. in downtown Tigard, primarily within Rotary Plaza parking lot behind the Tigard Chamber building, and with a partial street closure, half street closure of a small section of Tigard Street. So we already have over 40 vendors joining us so far this season, and we're almost sold out of spaces, which is fantastic because we're actually able to put more spaces in this year because we don't have to space the booths 5 feet apart. And then from a downtown perspective, there's a new ceramic studio that is opening in downtown Tigard called Cascade Ceramic Studio. They are running their Tigard Art Week May 16th through the 22nd. So artists can now apply to participate in Art Week. And they're launching a new thing in conjunction with Art Walk, but it's a separate event called the Tigard Wine Walk. It's going to be presented by Amy and Reba's Day Drinking Wine Tours, and that is Thursday, May 19th. And they'll be selling tickets starting next week. And just a reminder that as we move into construction at some point with the other part of Main Street, that downtown Tigard is open for business, and please come down and support our business community in downtown Tigard. That is the end of my update.
Thank you, Debbie. And again, congratulations on your retirement. And I'll be looking forward to the May 11th date. I think I already have that on my calendar. I think there were some pre-date notifications that you may not have known about that went out.
Okay, well, that's good.
I believe.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
All right, let's move on to public comment, written public comments. I believe we received one by the deadline today. City Recorder Krager, we had a letter, another public comment from Elizabeth Sprague. She was providing some recommendations for code amendments regarding poultry and livestock. Council, you should have received that earlier today. Make sure that you take a look at that. I think most have probably already read it, but if you have not, be aware. And with that, City Recorder Krager, that was the only one, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, Mr. Nolip, we'll move on to phone-in public comment. Is there anyone in the queue?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have one person in the queue. Let me put them through to you now.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you.
Can you hear me?
We can, go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Mayor and esteemed council members. My name is Elizabeth Sprague. And with Planning Commission working on a project that will, among other things, have the poultry and livestock codes being reviewed and considered for revisions, I wanted to share an idea, and some of that was in my written comment as well. In 2018, Tigard City Council members voted unanimously to remove the 100-foot housing requirement on the poultry livestock ordinance, stating that the city's existing nuisance code adequately protects against offensive odors, unsanitary conditions, excessive noise potentially caused by livestock or poultry, ensuring Tigard residents are not left without recourse by the proposed code amendment. I believe this is still true today. The decision to remove the 100-foot requirement was a positive step forward. Our neighboring cities are following our lead and changing their ordinances to allow poultry and livestock in the city. Some may have more restrictions, limit on the number of birds, permit required, housing restrictions, etc. But what we should really be looking at is that they're moving forward from not allowing chickens to allowing them. Salem recently doubled the number of chickens allowed. Let's be an example of why they should keep stepping forward rather than allowing ourselves to step backwards. Considering all the uncertainties we're facing with COVID, supply chain issues, climate change, the attacks on Ukraine, now is not the time to step backwards. Many families have started victory gardens and added backyard chickens. Now is the time to teach our children and our communities about self-sustainability, how to limit waste and our overall carbon footprint. Let's explore education options before considering any restrictions. Let's not punish people or shut them down for wanting to create food security. Let's teach them. Let's teach them how to do it responsibly and respectfully. I would love to volunteer my time to teach community classes on sustainability through keeping poultry and livestock responsibly. Education that I believe is in line with the goals of Tigard's Climate and Community Resilience Action Plan. Austin, Texas has a great example on YouTube called Chicken Keeping Class. Now is not the time to step backwards. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Sprague. Appreciate it. And good to hear from you. And thank you for your written thoughts as well. All right, we will move on to public hearing. This is going to be on the 2022 third quarter budget supplemental. I just want to acknowledge we are already 21 minutes behind schedule. I also see a hand up from a staff member, perhaps. Was that Mr. Rager who was?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. If I may, real quick, I can answer a question that Councilor Shaw asked earlier regarding item 2B. The April 22nd date for the Community Emergency Response Day was a date selected last year, and we just asked for the same date this year. And the CERT team has even noted on their website that it is also Earth Day, and they appear to be happy with the crossover, so no problem there.
All right, thank you for that follow-up. I am going to open the public hearing. Anyone that wishes to testify on the 2022 third quarter budget supplemental should call to get in the queue now. Phone number to call is 503-966-4101. Senior Management Analyst Kang, staff report, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councilors. My name is Steve Kang, Senior Management Analyst from Finance. I'm here to present the fiscal year 2022 third quarter budget supplemental. The summary and the exhibit should contain the description, detailed descriptions, and the financial impact. I'll provide the overview of the included items and the impact to the city's operations. First item is the community development. So first from the community development is requesting to allocate $500,000 of the American Rescue Plan Act funds, also known as ARPA, as financial aid to businesses for a grant and revolving loan program. This is the sixth round of the Tigard CARES program. This request will provide the budget appropriations to distribute program funds approved by the City Council to support the local businesses impacted by COVID-19. Next, City Management. City Management has two supplemental items. First from the City Management is the two limited duration positions, 1.5 FTE, to address the council goal around the houselessness. Council approved this initiative to be funded by ARPA back in February. These positions, Houseless Services Policy Manager and Program Coordinator, will fill a citywide need and work to address needs around houselessness in the community. In addition, they'll work to secure safety, services, stability, housing for residents who are houseless, and advance public policies and budget that will manage houselessness in the future. Second request from City Management is the professional consulting services related to a recruitment. City Management will be working closely with the recruiter on an executive search to fill a high-level position within our organization. We anticipate the search will begin immediately. Next is Finance. One request from Finance. Utility Billing Division is requesting additional budget appropriations for credit card transaction processing fees. The number of credit card transactions is comparable to last fiscal year. However, the substantial increase in per transaction fee is requiring additional appropriations in fiscal year 2022 and beyond. Finance is requesting $200,000 in fiscal year 2022. Lastly, Public Works. Public Works has two requests. The first one is the Parks and Recreation System Plan Implementation and Financial Modeling Services for Park System. This request is made up of two parts. First one is implementation plan, and second one is the financial modeling services. Implementation portion will focus on prioritizing capital projects and recreation programming, including cost estimating and creating a screening tool. This will include refining the list of capital projects and recreation program from the adopted 2021 Parks and Recreation System Plan. Financial modeling portion will focus on overall financial model for the Parks and Recreation program with a focused lens on the long-term implementation plan. This work includes the long-term and stable funding source for maintenance operations and recreations, and for CIP projects related to the new system plan. Phases of this work include: 1, Parks and Recreation fee calculation methodology, utilizing more equitable forms of fee assessment. 2, Parks SDC analysis and rate setting. Lastly, 3, total funding strategy for Parks and Recreation program. Second request from Public Works is the consulting services to the related to the Hall Boulevard and Greenberg Road jurisdictional transfer. The consultant's main role is to provide professional services for scoping safety improvements along the Hall Boulevard and provide scope and estimate for the work along the Greenberg Road. The consultant will also support the city's efforts in securing funding for these improvements in to the Hall Boulevard and the Greenberg Road. Both locations are included in the proposed jurisdictional transfers to the city of Tigard. Hall Boulevard is currently State Department of Transportation facility, and Greenberg Road is currently a Washington County facility. In total, fiscal year 2022 third quarter supplemental will increase the budget by $808,000 across 9 city funds. These additional appropriations will be primarily supported by the contingency and grants. Please note that this supplemental will not impact the city's reserves. That's the end of the prepared presentation, and recommendation is approval of the resolution. With that, we're available to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kang. City Recorder Krager, I don't believe we had any written public testimony. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, that's correct. We received none.
Mr. Nolip, are there any callers in the queue?
No callers, Mr. Mayor.
All right, I will close the public hearing. Council consideration of resolution 22-07 or questions for Mr. Kang, discussion, deliberation. Councilor Goodhouse.
I think Councilor Newton had a question first, then I have a question, or a couple questions.
Okay, guess it depends on whether we're going with electronic hands or real hands. Go ahead, Councilor Newton.
Sorry, I couldn't get my electronic hand to work. I have a question, Mr. Kang, on the implementation plan portion for the park system plan. It says that there's going to be $30,000 for out years estimating. Is that related to the rolling 5-year project list? Is that what that's for? It says a rolling 5 to 10 year approach. Further down, develop project program implementation timeline in 5-year increments, rolling 5 to 10 year approach. Is that what the $30,000 is for? Or do you know? Maybe somebody else would have an answer.
Yeah, Public Works Director present.
Thanks, Mr. Kang. Happy to take that. Councilor Newton, yes, the short answer is yes. However, I would qualify that to say that the verbiage you see tonight in this quarterly supplemental, we had to submit that verbiage on March 14th or so, and we had our conversation with the council about the Parks and Rec implementation plan on March 15th. So we got direction from the council about how to approach implementation work, including how to approach the capital improvement planning. And so this verbiage is a little outdated given that direction we got from the council. Specifically, we heard from you and others that there was concern raised about not listing projects or a grouping of projects until we knew how we were going to pay for it. And that brings in that stable funding plan, the funding strategy. So if I pull back a bit, the funds you see requested here are to help us do the work that we described to you on our discussion on March 15th.
Okay, so ideally we would have a very comprehensive list, a priority list. It just wouldn't be broken down. And so once you write the scope for the contract, you'll be looking at how that's worded, and 30K may not look like 30K. So is that correct? It may be different because of the scope. Fair. The other thing I will just a comment, I really appreciate the last bullet under the financial model about the total funding strategy. So thanks for including that. That's all I had, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I apologize. I don't know if people noticed I got a full reboot there of my teams with a. So anyway, Councillor Goodhouse. I didn't miss much though. Brian was still talking. Go ahead, Councillor Goodhouse.
Thank you. 2 questions. The first one on the houseless service program on that hiring. How's that process going? I know that we were talking a while ago about hiring that position, and now we're using an executive search consulting service, but how's that process going?
So I believe we're still waiting for the budget appropriations to hire that position, but the city manager Reimer should be able to explain better in terms of a process.
And are those 2 things actually connected? Is the search, the executive search for that? I don't.
No,
they,
so those are not connected.
Yeah.
City manager Reimer.
let me start with that last part just for clarification. The executive search is for one of our director level positions that we're going to start recruiting for now. And then the other funding is the formality of the FTEs and then the funding to go with it. Our assistant city manager, Kathy Nyland, has been working with our human resources team, and we are close to posting the coordinator position. And we've had some conversations on the half-time position that would provide more of the strategic thinking for us. The other comment I'd make is, oh, I'm sorry.
That's what I just kind of lumped that together. I thought for some reason I thought that was together, but I just wanted to know how that process was going for that homeless service.
Yeah, and then this my final comment is obviously we're looking at this holistically. Councillor Newton and others have already mentioned the work of our police department, some of the reports you're getting. So we're still doing work. We're just looking at adding that additional capacity. So thank you for the question though.
Oh yeah. And then the second part is, and I think we were going to maybe talk about it another time, but I know I always bring it up all the time, but I guess a clarification on the credit card processing fees. So if we're putting another $200,000 for that, I know that we've had discussions back and forth whether or not we're paying for that or is being paid for by residents, and if there's options as far as so we avoid some of those fees, or we have more of an option where people pay from bank accounts. We can kind of go over that process a little bit more. Just as you're saying, there's a larger increase and we're having to add another $200,000 towards the fees. To me, it still seems like something we're using money where most businesses or so forth, add that into the fee or give options where that's not charged or so forth. I know we don't want to put the extra burden on certain residents that may have to use a card to carry it, but those fees are adding up. I just want a better description on that. And I think we are going to be talking about that in more detail.
So I know briefly what that cost is. And as far as the revenue standpoint, we actually do not charge additional fees to our residents for those fees. The fees for those charges are actually accounted for in the rate structure that we have. So it's sort of like a part of doing business type of cost. So it is the cost. We understand it's actually going up. And as far as the utility billing is concerned, utility billing is being funded by the utility funds. So it is being reimbursed through the utility funds. And obviously the revenue for the utility funds are being are getting from the charges that they're charging to the customers.
And I'll just remind everyone that we don't charge the cost of processing a counter check either, even though that's even more than a credit card. Like there's costs of processing every payment type that we manage, and we're never going to stop accepting checks at the counter, right? I mean, I just don't think that's going to happen. And yet that's the single most expensive transaction we can have happen. So I just want to, I think it's important to center the fact that there are lots of different ways that it costs us to collect money, and this is just but one of them and is built into the cost and our rates. Councillor Goodhouse, did you have any follow-up questions on
No, that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any further discussion or a motion? Or we can just let it hang. Council President Lube.
I move to approve resolution number 22-07.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, please read the number and title of the ordinance.
Resolution number 22-07. A resolution to adopt the fiscal year 2022 third quarter budget supplemental, including budget adjustments to community development, community services, public works, and policy and administration.
All right, City Recorder, roll call vote, please.
Councillor Shaw,
Yes.
Mayor Snyder,
Yes.
Councillor Goodhouse,
Yes.
Councillor Newton,
Yes.
Council President Lube.
Yes.
All right, resolution 22-07 is passed unanimously. Thank you, Steve and team, for that. And I think you're right up again as I convene us as the Town Center Development Agency for the next item. This will be the Town Center Development Agency public hearing, third quarter TCDA budget supplemental. I will open the public hearing. Anyone that wants to testify may do so by phoning in and calling. Be a good time to call and get in the queue now. Do so by calling 503-966-4101. And Mr. Kang, staff report.
Good evening, TCDA Chair and board members. Again, my name is Steve Kang, Senior Management Analyst from Finance. This time, I'm presenting the fiscal year 2022 third quarter budget supplemental for TCDA. So TCDA has one supplemental item, and it is to add the debt service payment for the payment scheduled in fiscal year 2022. In general, debt service payment appropriations, debt service budget appropriations are estimated based on the scheduled payments that we know of at the time of budgeting. However, due to the bonds issued in September 2021, which was after the 22 budget adoption, Finance wasn't able to appropriately budget this portion of the debt service obligation. Once approved, this will increase the TCDA debt service budget by $525,000, and increase in appropriations will be funded by the reserve for future expenditures. The recommendation is for the approval of the resolution implementing the third quarter budget supplemental. And that's the end of the prepared remarks, and we're available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kang. I don't believe we received any written public comment. City Recorder Krager, is that correct?
That's correct. No comments were received.
Mr. Nolop, any callers in the queue?
No callers, Mr. Mayor.
All right, I'll close the public hearing. Consideration of TCDA resolution 22-02. Any discussion or a motion? Councilor Newton.
I move to approve resolution number 22-02.
Council President Luke.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? City Recorder, please read the number and title of the resolution.
TCDA resolution number 22-02. A resolution to adopt the fiscal year 2022 third quarter budget supplemental, including budget adjustments to Town Center Development Agency Urban Development.
And City Recorder, roll call vote, please.
Director Shaw,
Yes.
Chair Snyder,
Yes.
Director Goodhouse,
Yes.
Director Newton,
Yes.
Director Lube.
Yes.
All right, TCDA resolution 22-02 is adopted unanimously, and we will reconvene as the City Council for the remainder of the meeting. Next item on the agenda is Universal Plaza update. And we've got a whole team here for this. Mr. Asher, I see you. You're going to introduce your team?
I am. Chair Snyder and directors of the Town Center Development Commission, that's how I'm going to address you. My name's Kenny Asher. I'm the Community Development Director for the City of Tigard, also the Project Director for Universal Plaza, which after 5 years of diligent work will be before you later tonight in the form of a contract amendment for a construction award. With your approval of that award, construction on the project scheduled to begin in a few short months. I want to make sure the team has their cameras on. I'll introduce them and make a few remarks, and then we'll go. The presentation you're about to hear is for your background and for the community to remind everyone of what Universal Plaza is all about and how we arrived at this milestone in the redevelopment process and what to expect from Tigard's newest and perhaps most unique park asset. The actions that are requested of you this evening will come immediately after this presentation and any Q&A that might follow. Now, I've heard it said that the best projects are the ones where the team finishes the project as great friends. This project isn't over yet, but this group is certainly on that trajectory. You're going to hear from a number of folks tonight because the project is the result of so much impressive collaboration and also so much optimism. Universal Project is a project with really big aspirations, just like downtown Tigard. The plaza is destined to become part of iconic Tigard. It will be a place of civic pride and an inerasable statement about the city that Tigard is trying to become. Ever more welcoming, appreciative of the value of everyone here, and honest about the climate and equity work that needs doing by us now and as well by future generations. Our strategic vision to be walkable, healthy, and accessible to everyone, that's a vision of universal values. And so Universal Plaza aspires to be at that place where we can live those values outside in public together, a place where all of Tigard can come together and celebrate our shared humanity and one shared planet. Now, the presenters you're going to hear from tonight are just a small sample from a very large group of community members and city teammates and consultants, contractors, suppliers, everybody who's pulled together to make this plaza a reality for downtown Tigard. And in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and introduce them to you now in the order that they will present. Y'all can wave if you want. Sean Farrelly, Tigard's Redevelopment Project Manager. Lauren Scott, our Community Engagement Coordinator. Graham Sandelsky, Project Director at Rios Design Collective. I don't know if we have Peter Emerson here tonight, also from Rios. He's the studio director. Martin McKnight, who you know as Tigard's Parks Supervisor, and Vanessa Robinson, Senior Project Manager at Shields Oblitz Johnson. Brian Shoemaker and maybe Ken Farringer from PNC Construction, our construction manager, are also on hand tonight to answer questions about the construction project and the construction industry, if you have any, but will not be presenting any slides. So before turning it over to this amazing team, I do want to share one personal note, and that is this. In 25 years of doing community development projects around this region, I have never been more excited or more convinced about a single project's potential for transformational impact on a redevelopment district as I am about Universal Plaza. Now, nothing is certain and there's still a long way to go. But I feel like the Tcda board from 8 or 9 years ago under John Cook's leadership really deserves credit for allowing us to acquire this site. And then so does this board under Chair Snyder for insisting that we develop it now into the plaza that's been so long desired for downtown. The actions that this board has already taken have really put the project in a great position to succeed. And for that, on behalf of everyone, I want to say thank you very much. And I also want to add a note of thanks to our city manager, Steve Reimer, for his leadership in helping us solve some very difficult funding challenges down the home stretch. And with that, to tell you the story of what this community and team have created and what is in store for downtown, here's Sean Farrelly.
Good evening, Chair Snyder and the directors of the Tcda board. I'm Sean Farrelly, the redevelopment project manager, managing the project from the city side. So I'm going to talk about why Universal Plaza, why in the downtown, and why now. It's been a long time desire of Tigard residents to have a public gathering place in the downtown. I recall seeing reference to a plaza in a downtown planning document from the 1970s. The current blueprint that we're working off of, the Tigard Downtown Improvement Plan from 2005, makes reference to a plaza adjacent to Fano Creek as the real heart of downtown. And the City Center TIF plan, which implements that TDIP document, includes public places as a key project to fund. So, you know, this project, in addition to all of the being kind of an emblem of our commitment to inclusivity and resiliency, and really a badge of civic pride, this plaza is also going to catalyze new development in the downtown, new development and new investment. We believe that the many thousands of visitors that will come to downtown to visit the plaza are going to become new customers of downtown businesses and new investors in downtown, and maybe even new residents. So to talk about why now, you know, as with all TIF plans, it takes a while for sufficient funding to accrue to do a major project like that. So it took us a while to get here. 2014, the TIF agency did purchase this property, then known as the Miller property, the intention of holding it and seeing what we could do with it. And then 2017, we were directed by the TCDA board to make this the site of our public plaza in downtown. And, you know, we did buy out the lease of Ferguson, the tenant there. We did some early concept work. And then in 2020, we hired Rios Design Collective to be the design, engineering, and activation consultant for this project. And we've been working on it diligently for the past 2 years. So I will turn it over to Lauren now, who will talk about the public involvement that has happened on this project.
Next slide, please, Vanessa. Thank you. Good evening. I'm Lauren Scott, Community Engagement Coordinator for the City of Tigard. Universal Plaza was designed with the community through interactive and engaging experiences, both on-site and virtually. Over the course of the design process, we had over 4,500 online participants, 266 ideas generated, and 59 community members who opted into becoming design advisors. They participated in meetings both on-site through self-directed surveys and the virtual design meetings. So our community really led this design process. What you see here is the culmination of our community's desires for this plaza and for this space. What we heard from the community during this process, which I'm sure you've all heard before numerous times, splash pad, splash pad, splash pad. This plaza will be home to Tigard's #1 most requested amenity. The community also asked for a multi-use accessible space that community members could enjoy season round that had flexible uses, which you'll see here. Safety was another major element we heard, along with lots of lighting for nighttime and good sightlines. We also heard that there should be an entry piece, inviting visitors into the space, which you'll notice we have with the Burnham Porch swing, and also a community room for people to gather. One of the other major requests that we heard that wasn't even on our radar when we began was the community's desire for a bike and pedestrian connection linking Universal Plaza to the Fano Creek Trail. To be responsive to this community need, we started a second project in order to link these two sites together. But through the design process, it became clear that these two projects should be developed together instead of separately. You can see this feature added in the lower left-hand corner of the image, which will be a boardwalk leading from the plaza to Fano Creek Trail. As you can see by this design and what we heard from the community, residents want to see more than we can currently afford. Instead of value engineering the space, there was an early decision to parse this project into 2 phases. Phase 2 will include the overhead canopy, providing shelter from rain and sun, the community room, and built-in seating both alongside the water feature and throughout the lawn. Next slide, please, Vanessa. The design process for the plaza occurred during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Designers had the unique challenge of creating activations on site that could attract visitors, influence design decisions, and also maintain social distancing guidelines. Displayed here are some of the highlights of the activation process. On the top right is the plaza's mobile museum, This is Kalapuan Land, was a temporary exhibit curated by Indigenous artists and historians from Five Oaks Museum. On the bottom left, Universal Beacon was a large-scale art piece created from scaffolding, lighting elements, and weaves of vibrant fabric. Both of these activations inform design and the size of structures and amenities on site. Acknowledging that the plaza would attract visitors both day and night, we activated the space with community-generated haikus displayed through gobo lights on the ground, 3 twinkle trees letting the night through the dark winter months. These activations help design a safety and lighting for the site, making it an attractive place to visit any time of day and all 4 seasons. Each activation helped draw visitors into the space. We know that once the space is built, there'll be an even greater desire for continued activation, programming, and events here. We're looking forward to holding many activities here to keep attracting and driving visitors to downtown and to this special place. Next slide. Graham, take it away.
Actually, I'll be taking the first few slides and Graham will follow up. Thank you, Lauren. Good evening, everybody. My name is Peter Emerson. I think most or all of you have heard from me in the past. I'm a landscape architect and studio director with Rio's Design Collective, as we're being known or called. And we really are a collective of designers thinking about problems and challenges and sites in communities all across the country from a variety of perspectives. So we do everything from experiential design to architecture to landscape architecture, and all those things really came together here. And this has been a unique project and an extremely rewarding one. And I think one of the main reasons for that is because the design itself didn't come from us, but it came from all of you and the people who participated in the process. We by ourselves would not have created this design on our own. It just wouldn't have happened. And through the unique process that we've had, we've really realized something that I think is perfectly well suited for this community and is going to do exactly what Lauren and Sean and Kenny have talked about, bringing activity and a new dynamic cultural hub right at the heart of downtown. What you see here in this slide is a representation of a bunch of our ideas all merged together. And the big picture here is that we learned and understood the importance of the connection from Fano Creek to the downtown. We knew the connection to downtown was important. We knew the connection to Fano Creek was important, but we didn't fully understand or appreciate how important this site was to stitching those two together. And that really came out of clearing the site of the building that was there, creating installations during the height of the COVID pandemic, testing and experiencing the site in person, and participating in on-site workshops and design reviews with community members. At the heart of this diagram, you see a blue water feature. This is really the heart of the project, and Graham is going to go into a lot more detail about that. But through the process, we also realized the importance for shade, canopy for rain cover, opportunities for programming, and a variety of other elements that really promote what we like to call stickiness, or the thing that really holds people to a place in public. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the water feature is really at the heart of this place. And it's a major experience. This will be an enormous draw, and it will activate downtown. But it also performs as a space, even when it's not operating as a water feature. So you can see on the bottom image here, a setting where the water feature actually just goes dry. And at the top right here, you see a program that the water feature takes where it's just a very thin pool of water, what we call a scrim pool. And it's so thin you can walk on it and not really get your feet too wet. And there's also lighting features incorporated into that. And so there's the opportunity for this to be more reflective or quiet, depending on the time of day. And then fully animated at the top left at times that are really important for getting kids and families out there Saturday mornings when there's a lot of activity in downtown, and other times where there may be larger groups of people there. And we'll get into a few more of the specifics of how that works in just a minute. Vanessa, do you mind moving on to the next slide? The character, the look and feel of this this place is really intended to be welcoming, soft, engaging. You know, these are, I think, beyond the water itself. This is a good indication of the character and the look and feel of the place that we're aiming to create here. Next slide, please, Vanessa. So I'm going to walk you through a couple of different approaches and views of Tigard Plaza, Tigard Universal Plaza, I'm sorry. The first of which is from the Burnham entry. Each one of the thresholds to this you know, future public open space in downtown are distinctive. And that's very much intentional. And what we've done here in the foreground is craft a place that we've, I think, affectionately called the front porch of the park. And so we've created a series of bench swings. These aren't play swings, these are bench swings that are actually configured so you can sit and swing looking inward, or you can sit and swing looking outward. And you know, sometimes you could do both. And so it's a unique configuration for swings, and it's an engaging way to welcome people into the site and animate the edge of the project at Burnham Street, which is super critical for getting people from Main Street to this space. We all have talked about in the past the challenges of this site in particular, but we've worked very hard to make it an inviting place from Burnham and to really draw people's attention from down the road. And one of the main ways that happens beyond the swings is this stunning canopy that floats above a future community room here in the front and a restroom facility in the back that's actually being built as part of this phase here. This is a huge indication that there's something happening here. It's a destination. So this is a similar view taken from a little bit higher up. There's a few other ways to announce that there's something happening here. Lighting features are dramatic and tall and kind of consolidated to more but bigger light features. And keep in mind, the orientation of this is such that we expect the water feature to largely be backlit as you walk into the space from Burnham. And what that means is it's going to glow. It's going to be bright, and it's going to draw you into the space, whether it's day or night. Because at night we do have the ability to program all sorts of different lighting effects. That's all built into it. And what you can see here at the right side is a dense planting to screen the marine side of the project, create a little bit of privacy there. And in the back, we slowly transition to the Fano Creek by incorporating more stormwater management features, vegetated corridor planting that's dense with trees that are appropriate, native and adapted for those conditions, and really creates a transition to the Fano Creek from this urban or downtown space. So this alternate arrival point, and we think this is going to be a very popular alternate arrival point, is from the Phantom Creek Trail. And so what you see here is the ending or the beginning, depending on which direction you're coming from, of the boardwalk. That is a serpentine boardwalk that connects back to the Phantom Creek Trail, just off of Ash Street there. And we've developed interpretive signs for a couple of locations along there and maintained the height just low enough that guardrails aren't necessary. It's perfectly safe for folks, for kids, for people with various mobility means, and at the same time, it's open. It's open to the wetland. It's open to the Phantom Creek. It's open to the forest that's being established there, and that experience, that a little bit precarious but engaging position, walking through the wetland will be a feature for the community. This will be something people want to go and do. And at the same time, as you arrive at Phantom Creek, you have the same welcoming architectural feature of the canopy, the water feature beyond, the activity, the swings in the background, and we have planned permanent picnic tables arranged in a thoughtful and artful way off to the left there. So all of those things come together to create a really special hub of activity in the heart of downtown.
Thank you, Peter. Good evening, all. My name is Graham Sandelsky. I'm a project director at Rios Design Collective and the project manager from the design side of the project. I know we're running a bit over schedule for this evening, so I'll try to address my slides relatively quickly. This image really shows what we all know is going to be the most exciting feature for phase one, which is the most requested one, the interactive water feature, the splash pad. The splash pad will be extremely special and interactive at all times of day and night, utilizing, as Peter mentioned, a scrim pool for activities and splashing during the day, jets, a variety of sizes interacting and changing shape, and then last but not least, lights to shine the crown jewel at night. Next, please. What makes the water feature so special, besides its total custom design for Universal Plaza, is that a really amazing palette of special materials was chosen so that this water feature felt special at all times, even when drained and the plaza was being used for events. What you see in these leaf-shaped forms will be a special 2 types of green granite surrounded by seas and bands of custom integral colored concrete with special aggregates. Next, please. And while we all know that the water feature will be the star of the show for phase one, among a host of other amazing features, what phase two, and looking forward for the future of Universal Plaza really hopes to expand upon, is the interactive and inclusive foundation set forth in phase one. This rendering image shows what will be one of the major and most important features of phase two, which is the all-access community room with its associated outdoor space. The associated architectural canopy will provide covering for that outdoor space so it's usable for as much time as possible. Another important feature of phase two will be what's in the foreground, which is a community table, a special community table, which has been designed to accommodate users of all abilities and ages.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Martin McKnight. I'm one of 2 parks supervisors in the Parks Division, and I will be in charge of operations and maintenance when the Universal Plaza comes online. Starting off, a reminder that downtown is identified as one of the 5 priority focus areas in the recently adopted Parks and Rec System Plan. In keeping with that priority focus, park staff members have been included from the start of the design process, and we've provided a lot of input on materials and operations. And since we've been involved from the beginning, we've studied the plans and we understand the long-term resource obligation to maintain the plaza and to keep it in tip-top shape. As was previously shared with the council, the Universal Plaza will require the additional 2 FTE in our division. Some background on that. In parks, we categorize properties, for example, Cook Park with all of its assets and activities, is a Category 1 park. The Universal Plaza will in some ways function as a typical Category 1. We know that there are over 2,000 plants toward the west side of the slide you're seeing, and a bunch to the north. We know 92 trees will be placed on the property, 4 restrooms toward the lower end of the slide there that you can see, the boardwalk, of course. All of these are familiar features that we're used to maintaining, but some things that set the Universal Plaza apart from a typical Category 1 park and makes us, we're calling it a Category 1 plus, are, of course, the exceptional high visibility of the plaza, the heavy use that will undoubtedly come, lots of programming and special events, and lots more evening and night use, perhaps more than any other parks property in town. And of course, the most unique and labor-intensive feature in the plaza is the water feature. We've known since our initial basic research we'd need staff members with pool operator certifications to run the water feature. Additionally, to gain the best understanding of how to operate and maintain these types of facilities, we toured the 2 interactive water features at the city of Wilsonville. Also talked extensively with the operator of a very similar fountain in Des Moines, Iowa, at the Performing Arts Center there, which was also designed by Fluidity. Got a lot of good information from those folks. We learned that 2 full-time shifts are necessary to operate the fountain 7 days per week from May through September, and that we will likely average between 10 and 14 entries per week into the confined space vault that houses pumps and equipment to run the water feature. Confined space means that there'll need to be a safety person on top, on the ground level at the plaza, whilst the operator is in the vault, doing things like checking filters and adjusting the chemistry, checking pumps, etc. Our plan is to select 2 current parks utility workers to train and certify in operations, and to also absorb all the other plaza maintenance through next spring or the end of fiscal year 23. And as we enter the budget season next year, we will ask for 2 more FTE to backfill for those that were assigned to the Universal Plaza. In summary, the plaza will need and deserve top-level maintenance, and we have a solid plan in place to take care of what's going to be an extremely popular spot downtown. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. I am Vanessa Robinson, Senior Project Manager at Shields Obelisk Johnson. And if you'll just stick with us for a couple more minutes, we are almost done. And let's get the slides to move. There we go. So the last 2 years, it's been a struggle for our communities, society, individuals, and also the construction industry. Through design, the team understood that we were up against material shortages and long lead times, and a labor market that's been stretched with a considerable number of people retiring and a general shortage of skilled workers to fulfill the high market needs. We've got inflation and escalation. Relative to all that could have been known and foreseeable and expected, the team diligently tracked the construction budget and updated estimates at an average of every 2 to 3 months over the last year and a half. Even with these conservative design changes and constant due diligence, the estimates continued to push up. As we dove into the final stages of establishing a guaranteed maximum price for the project, our last update in March came in at $6.05 million. However, with an incredible and coordinated effort with the city, with Rios, with Parks, and with PNC, creative solutions were implemented, never before done solutions exercised, and an extensive yet thoughtful value engineering exercise that didn't sacrifice the integrity or the soul of the design. And we have brought our GMP to $5.6 million. I would like to note that we are grateful for the board approval on the CMGC contracting and the construction manager and general contractor with PNC. Without having them on board early through the pre-construction and design, We would have not have had the full financial insight on where the project was landing and avenues to adjust. In the traditional process of going out to bid after full design completion, I believe it would have been put in a very difficult financial situation and potentially have a delay in the construction start date as the team struggled to find the stability in the project. Another coordinated effort over the last couple months between the city manager and Parks, Public Works, and Community Development, they built an avenue of funding sources required to fund the Universal Plaza and the Fano Creek Trail connection. The Parks SDC funding source will provide just under $3 million, the TIF Capital Improvement Fund contributing 4.3, and finally, TIF internal borrowing covering the remaining need of $900,000 for a total of $8.128 million. This total budget of just over $8 million will cover the full GMP construction cost, the previous demolition of the existing building, design, engineering, permitting fees, and a strong owner contingency that will carry the current design through a successful project completion. So now to come full circle on all the information that's been put in front of you and that you heard tonight, this is the exciting note to end on. We are on track to start construction at the beginning of June in just 2 brief months from now. And with an expected timeline of 6 months of construction, the city of Tigard will have a new open plaza and connection to the Fano Creek Trail before the end of this year. Thank you.
That concludes our presentation. I apologize, we went a little long. It's so, like I said, it's a project full of optimism and optimistic people. We get a little excited when we start talking. Thank you for your patience, and we're happy to take any questions or listen to any discussion that you might want to have. Thank you.
Well, Kenny, I think, the project's transformational. I think it's good that we're having a conversation. I'm going to ask sort of a question, I think, to start with. Around the canopy design in particular. And I heard the word architectural canopy, which I guess I need to give a little bit of background here when I make this comment. And that is that I have been the operational director of multiple medical facilities in Oregon that have canopies that are terrible at doing their job, in my mind, of keeping people dry. And when I have asked, I've been told, well, they weren't designed for that. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, we're in Oregon. We got people in wheelchairs. We got, people undergoing medical care, being moved between buildings, and you built a really good looking thing that doesn't serve the function that we actually need. And I look at the canopy as it's designed. It looks like it's well designed to protect from the sun. And I just can't tell what will happen in the rain environment from the way that it's sort of tilted up in certain places. And I guess I'd like some assurances that it's not just good looking, but that it's being engineered so it will actually keep people dry, just like the ones should have been designed right outside the medical facilities I've run.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The first assurance, I'm going to let Peter say a few words. The first assurance I'll give you is that it's a perfectly well-timed question because it's not actually designed yet. And I think you're all aware it's a phase 2 element. And so you're seeing a rendering of an idea that I think has been tested, but which has not been designed and will assuredly be designed for Oregon before it ever gets to us for permitting. But Peter, do you want to give a quick response to the mayor's question about rain protection in Oregon?
Yeah, Kenny, thank you. I think you covered it well overall. I will say that function is more important than form. And so we totally appreciate, and I've been equally as frustrated with architectural follies in the past, and assure you we're not heading there for Tigard. We will be very careful.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Goodhouse, I think you were first.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work, everyone. Maybe I might be missing this, and if I am, I apologize, but looking at the design and looking at the feedback and looking at the initial part, even when before the building was torn down, for activation of this plaza, a big part of it from the community members I've heard or citizens in the businesses downtown was really to also have a space for farmers markets, also for big music venues, and all those. And I don't see, unless I missed the layout, I don't see where you can put 30 or 40 different farmers market booths where you can have trucks and vehicles driving in and out. And I don't see where there could be a stage and somewhere where a 30-foot truck or bigger could get in there to be able to set a stage up with lights and stage and setup. I may be missing it, and I hope that's in there, but what's the format for getting those venues where maybe we'll have food trucks in there, market for all those different vehicles and navigating through that plaza?
Thanks, Councilor Goodhouse. If you missed it, it's because we didn't present it, but it is in there. Everything that you mentioned is in the design, except for maybe a 30-foot stage, although a smaller stage certainly is going to work. But the plaza has been designed for farmers market. I can't remember the number of stalls, but it's more than 40, which is what I heard Debbie mention this morning. Stalls that can be dropped off with trucks that are driving in and out of the plaza. It's been designed for that kind of vehicular access and protection of the water feature. It's also been designed for food carts, and we'll have food trucks that will have permanent infrastructure on the print shop side of the plaza. Everything, we didn't have time tonight because there's so many things on this agenda to go much longer on what we shared, but I can assure you that everything that you have talked about, that you've heard about from the community about having all kinds of events that support good sound, good lighting, good gatherings, large gatherings, smaller gatherings, gatherings that rely on stalls, gatherings that rely on vehicular access. The plaza has been designed to accommodate all of that.
And maybe I spoke wrong. I wasn't meaning a 30-foot stage. I was meaning like a 30-foot, like a big box truck that would be able to deliver in poles and a setup for a stage. So I just want to make sure that with permanent tables and some of these parts that there's actually, and if there's the splash pad, that there's an access that something like that could drive in, set that up, and could leave without either damaging grass or pavers or the water features, that there's able to get all that in there and for food trucks to park. So if it's possible, if you don't have the image, if you could get that to us, that'd be great, just to see how that part, because and also to make sure, I presume that we're going to be able to do, I know there was an initial problem with the Rotary Plaza where sales of alcohol and so forth were not there, but I think they had to do with ODOT. But I just want to make sure that those are some of the concerns they had with Rotary Plaza before, and that was one of the big things doing a walk through the site, was to be able to get all the access in and out, turning around to properly activate it. So there's nothing overhead, and there wasn't anything on the ground or around in the area.
Peter or Graham, do you want to add anything to this conversation?
I think Graham can cover it well.
Yes, thank you for the question, Councilman Goodhouse. We've done, like as was mentioned by my other teammates, we've done an extensive study on what kind of temporary activation can be used, because we did hear the same comments. That's an important part of the plaza. I believe the layout we reached was able to accommodate 55 10 by 10 stalls, including some 10 by 20 stalls. We actually met with Debbie and some members of the Chamber of Commerce to review the layout and the farmers market team to make sure that what we were proposing was in line with their vision for the future, and to make sure that Universal Plaza could be their future home moving forward. We have a diagram that we can share to the council and the team that kind of also outlines the 3 spaces that we've accommodated for stages on site. So we provide adequate electrical outlets and utilities for those stages. The stages themselves would be temporary in nature, but part of the flexible lawns and some of the topography is to actually create natural amphitheaters while shielding them from each other. The interstitial space between the community room and the restroom that will happen in phase one will also be an area for what could be considered more like a main stage. And that's part of the water feature training, is to allow that to kind of become one singular plaza, extended plaza space. We've also worked very closely with our civil engineers and geotechnical engineers to make sure that not only the materials we're proposing for the plaza, so two types of asphalt, a porous asphalt that is required and creates some storage water drainage for CWS, as well as traditional asphalt. Both of those have been designed to withstand the movement of, exactly like you mentioned, box trucks. And so they're kind of weight and turning radius, so that when things are brought on site, that it won't, tear up the plaza or the lawn. Additionally, some of the features that we are proposing, which would be rocks around the water plaza, as well as some of these benches, kind of serve twofold. So besides providing seating opportunities to members of the community and really drawing people to gather around the heart, they do provide an informal block from vehicles from driving over or damaging the water feature, instead of something less versatile like bollards. So we can definitely provide more backup. I know it's kind of abstract to hear and we weren't able to show it tonight, but rest assured that we have looked into ways that this plaza can be activated formally and permanently, as well as informally and on a temporary basis.
Thank you.
Councillor Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the great presentation. I'm really excited. I remember when we passed the park bond in, 2007, 2008, whenever that was, and the voters approved funding specifically for a plaza in downtown. And I love that it's universal, but it's also very unique. I love the porch swings. That's very good. And I just wanted to say that I'm really thrilled that Parks was so involved. I really appreciated Martin McKnight's presentation. Sounds very well thought out. The whole project feels real cohesive to me, like everybody's thinking through a lot of details. I appreciate the questions that Councillor Goodhouse asked. But anyway, I'm really excited. It's great to see it coming together, and I think it's going to be a great addition. I'm as excited as Kenny is. So thanks for the great presentation.
Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Mayor, and also wanted to thank all the presenters. Excellent presentation, and thank you, Kenny, also for former Mayor Cook and the vision of the council putting this together, since I wasn't on the council, so very much appreciate that. Glad to hear that function is more important than form, and having worked for a law firm, I too appreciate the swings, but my first thought goes to, oh gosh, that's a safety hazard, and then that brings legal case, lawsuits, so forth. So hopefully we're taking that into consideration. Also, question with regards to the farmers market music, if we call it music in the park, was answered. So thank you very much. Look forward to seeing that. Perhaps, and this could be a question either for tonight or later, but maintenance costs, given it sounds like 4 FTEs, at least May through September, and just overall costs of just what it would cost to maintain with the spectacular lights and the water feature, and if there's a cost associated with that, a yearly maintenance cost, that'd be great. And if you don't have that tonight too, I can wait till next meeting or such.
We have it. The question is whether Martin can put his hands on it tonight. If not, certainly soon. Go ahead, Martin.
Yeah, our best estimate is 237,000. That's with personnel and supplies, et cetera.
And Councillor Shaw, I'll just add, because I think it's interesting, that was actually a topic that the council probably 4 or 5 years ago sort of forced into this discussion, which I think at first was kind of a little uncomfortable, or it was definitely not what the visionary leaders were thinking about. But, we'd had a lot of experiences where we had stuff given to us or that got built, and all of a sudden we owned something that required a lot of ongoing maintenance, and this really felt like it could be that. And so I just want to recognize the previous council for also sort of pushing the staff. I see Kenny shaking his head because I think he was less excited about that question a few years ago, but I think you now understand why we cared so much.
Well, I'm just so pleased that you remember that we did talk about it at the beginning of this project. And so I've been assuring everybody all along, yes, there's maintenance here, but the council has already said that they're committed, and that was in the mix. So I appreciate you recollecting that as well, Mr. Mayor.
All right, I think we got Youth Councilor Nog, then Council President Lube.
I overall really like the design, and I really like the emphasis on having the green space and the water area. One question about the water is over summer, if there was a water shortage, would there be a way to just turn it off and still have the park look nice? Is that something that would be possible for conservation?
Sure, yes. Go ahead, Peter, I guess. It's a recirculating water feature, so that's important to know. And it's there. The city will have a lot of control over its use, total control, actually. Peter, what else?
Yeah, I think the other thing is to be able to program it at the time of day that has the least impact on evaporation. And so, but yes, it's fully programmable, and Martin and his team will have all the flexibility they need to address things like that.
Just to quickly add on as well, there is a sensor nearby, so it's the water feature operates on a computer system that's kind of constantly taking atmospheric conditions. So talking about wind, if it's a particularly windy day, it'll reduce the pressure on the jets to reduce overspray. There's surrounding drainage, as Kenny and Peter mentioned, to make sure that the water is recirculating. But to address your other question, which we kind of skipped over or had to speed up, the water feature is designed with these really special materials, really beautiful custom colored granite, integrated custom color at concrete, and a formal graphic pattern on the ground that really drives home this idea of confluence, or the idea of streams meeting. So not only is it a direct relationship to water, but in terms of this idea between nature and urban downtown and Fan Oak Creek kind of coming together in this beautiful mix are represented in the hardscape material choices. So when the water feature is not running, and if it were to be just a dry, flat surface, it can, number one, be totally occupiable, and number two, will look amazing while being at the center of the plaza.
Sort of like an art piece in the middle of the plaza when the water's off, which it will be a lot.
I like the flexibility that's being described throughout all this space. Youth Councilor Nog, did you have anything further?
I had one more question. Okay. For the Universal Plaza, do you think there are ways to incorporate local artists as well as, I know the high school has an IB art program, and they oftentimes make really cool looking art pieces. So if there would be a way to show that off, that would be like a really cool way to incorporate like local youth artists.
Absolutely, positively, yes. That's the whole point, is to have this be the place where that happens, and it can happen for youth artists and for all kinds of community groups that need space. And that's why phase 2 is so important as well. Because now we're going to have outdoor space in phase 1, and I think it'll be really well used in the summer by all kinds of groups. But phase 2 is when we can get some indoor conditioned space in a community room under that canopy. And I think at that point, the use of the plaza is probably going to triple, because that kind of space is so desperately needed, especially downtown.
All right, let's see. Council President Lube, then back to Councilor Goodhouse, and then Councilor Shaw, if she still has questions.
Thank you. I know we're talking about these different phrases, and it also, we've talked about construction being completed in 6 months. Does that include all of these anticipated phases, and we're like rearing and ready to go in 6 months? What does that look like?
Sorry, we could have been more clear about that, Councilor Lube. Phase 1 will be done in 6 months, and that's everything except for that canopy structure and the community room that's underneath it, and also that community table that you saw in the foreground in that one slide. So those are the elements that we're having to kind of save up for and do in a few years if all goes according to plan. But everything else will be built at the conclusion of phase 1. And there are only 2 phases.
That's great to hear. And I agree with Mayor Snyder. I mean, living in Oregon, and today was a prime example, right? Like, it gets a little wet and a little snowy and cold. And, you know, we do still love to be outside. We like to say there's no such thing as bad weather, only, you know, you're not prepared for it with your gear. So we like to, all of our community members get outside at all times. And so how can we support them in that? You know, I'm really excited about the splash pad. I'm sure the community is glad that we heard them loud and clear, and they're going to be getting that. And I'm really excited at the possibilities of what's going on here. And, you know, given the presentation, there's just so much thoughtfulness. This is a really thoughtful project to address a lot of different things that we had asked for. And I know there's some stuff that y'all weren't able to address tonight. And I'm wondering, you know, that the information was really helpful, but is there a possibility, just, I mean, on top of pictures and such, to get like a memo to talk about the things that, you know, are addressed, and so we can be fully prepared to talk about these as we get everyone excited about it? So that would be my request, is just additional information in a memo.
Yes, always happy to provide that. If we get a little more direction on what information is still outstanding and that you're looking for more detail on, we're happy to provide it.
Okay, I mean, just like the conversation that we had about what it's set up for, even just like the different types of asphalt to make sure that, you know, there isn't damage, just all aspects that you think would be helpful would be great. And that's all for me.
Yep, we'll do that.
All right. Councilor Goodhouse, did you still have you have additional questions or comments?
Yes, thank you. A couple other ones. I presume that with the activation and planning for the events, it would be the same way as our parks, as far as securing a shelter in Cook Park or so forth. Is there going to be any fees associated when events are done there, or have we figured out any kind of schedule as far as what the? I mean, obviously we have a process as reserving spaces, but is there going to be any fees, or is it going to be the same thing as all of our other parks? And that's one of my questions. I have another 2.
I know that Rick Gruen is also on the call, or he was, and I think Martin is still here. Do either of you parks supervisors want to take that one?
Yeah, Rick Gruen here, Parks Manager. Thank you for the question, Councilor Goodhouse. We haven't finalized it. We imagine it'll be done very similar through our special event permit application, and we have both an external special event permit application as well as an internal, so that, you know, for city teammates who are looking to program space, it's a little bit more of a condensed, smaller application, if you will, to get all the details that are needed. We haven't gotten so far in terms of, you know, how the ongoing market space would be configured, but very similar right now. They access their space through a special event permit application, and in all of these, as you're aware from your recent application, it involves, you know, parks to look at it. It involves the police department to look at it, as well as streets. So I would imagine it's very similar, but to your specific question about fees, we haven't got that far down the road yet. It's something that we'll be addressing here in the coming weeks.
Okay, yeah, because as the mayor had mentioned, we had talked about maintenance and so forth on it, and I know we were talking about either fees, or there was even maybe talk about, you know, having someone name it, you know, as, you know, you have like you used to have up in Seattle, like Safeco Field or something like that, whether we'd have someone that would be a sponsor of the plaza would go towards fees or not. My last question is, what's the parking plan as far as this plaza? It's going to obviously activating it and having a lot of activities without us really having park construction nearby or really parking. I know that there's been a lot of parking discussions going on with businesses, and right there in Burnham already it's getting pretty backed up. There's talking about enforcing a 2-hour parking. And a lot of people from Atwell park there, so there's already not enough parking for what's there. What's the plan for parking once this is done and activated? Is there going to be designated areas? Are we going to look more at the structure, or what plan do we have? Because I presume when people come to activate it or reserve it, they're going to want to know where to park, and they're going to be required probably to have parking.
I'm pretty sure part of the answer to that is going to be that we hope they don't come and park, that they come on their feet and activate the park in different ways. But I'll be curious to hear what the staff's answer is.
Well, the more people we can get walking and biking to the downtown and to the plaza, the better, of course. So we need to keep working all of those connections. But people are going to drive, and parking is going to be a real issue. To directly answer the question, there is no plan yet, but that's only because the downtown business community and working together with the city is going to have to decide what should that plan be. And I think you're aware, Councilor Goodhouse, that the planning is underway. The plan isn't finished, so I can't tell you today what it is. But under the leadership of Assistant City Manager Emily Tritch and Sean Fairley, our redevelopment project manager, we are in a process with, parking consulting experts to work with the businesses downtown to determine, what is the best approach. I can tell you that having a parking structure is not going to happen. That is not part of the plan. If someday we can figure out how to pull that off, that would be terrific. I don't see it in the near term or even medium term. So we're going to have to make use of the on-street and off-street parking space that we have. And I think that we're going to probably have to do a certain amount of learning as we go, because we don't know exactly when and how many cars are going to descend upon this place in the summertime. But I'm sure that is going to be something that we're going to be talking about for a while, and we're already talking about. And it may be that going into this first summer, when it's open, which is next summer, we try some things about changing time stays and also trying to get some enforcement in place downtown to make sure that people are following the rules, parking for only as long as they're allowed. We can't do that yet today, but that is something that we are proposing and promoting on our side. So that one, I think, is just to be continued. I can assure you that we are thinking about it, but we're not doing that on our own. And it's going to take the whole downtown to decide what's the best approach.
Thank you.
All right, Councilor Shaw.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor. I too actually had the parking question only because I've lived in a city before that had very similar venue. That parking was limited, and realistically people drove. Realistically, the number one complaint towards the summers was parking. So just as long as we're aware of that, but also there's options such as micromobility that we can look at, being innovative, creative. So I look forward to having those discussions and seeing what we can do to minimize the cars. Also very excited to hear about the technology with the judicious use of the water and the mitigation, because I could tell you also being housed across from in the World Trade Center, downtown Portland, across from the water feature, when it's off, the number one question we get is turn it on. And when we tell them we can't, we have very unhappy families. So excited to hear that technology is available as well. And thank you.
All right, I do want to try to move us on. We're 40 minutes behind now. City Manager Reimer, while we're working on this next item or two, I think it'd be good for you to regroup with presenters on the CIP and the climate and community resiliency discussion and figure out perhaps which of those two should continue and which might be able to be managed later, unless you all think we can get through all of that. It appears just unrealistic to me at this point, and I want to make sure we keep people fresh. So City Manager Reimer, can you take a look at that and maybe report back after this next item and make a recommendation?
Absolutely.
Okay, and so we'll move on to item number 7, which I think is linked to the prior presentation. Local Contract Review Board Guaranteed Maximum Price Contract Amendment for PNC Construction to build Universal Plaza. And we have Director Trimp with us.
Good evening, Mayor Snyder, members of the council. It's nice to see you again. Yes, so item number 4863, as mentioned earlier, this action is to authorize a contract amendment for PNC Construction for the Universal Plaza. And the amount is $5,553,788. The total contract amount of $5.6 million. And as you know, approval of this action will allow City Manager Reimer to execute the contract and enabling construction to begin on the plaza. And this amount of this amendment is consistent with the city's budget for the project.
All right, thank you. We just had a huge discussion of the actual project, so maybe we can try to focus any questions on the actual contract or construction if there are any. Is there any discussion or a motion? Councillor Shaw?
Happy to make a motion if there are no additional questions. And if so, I move to approve the amendment to the guaranteed minimum price contract amendment for PNC Construction to build Universal Plaza.
I just want to verify, you said the word minimum. I think it's supposed to be maximum, and given how much money's involved, I want to make sure the motion is.
No, and everybody looked panicked for a moment. Yes, maximum.
Okay.
I'll second the motion with the word maximum in it.
All right, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, City Recorder, roll call vote, please. Yes.
Councillor Shaw.
Yes.
Mayor Snyder.
Yes.
Councillor Goodhouse.
Yes.
Councillor Newton.
Yes.
Council President Lube.
Yes.
All right, that motion carries unanimously, and that is one of the most exciting moments in, I feel like, my time as mayor. This is just going to be so transformational for not only our downtown, but our entire community, and what an exciting project, and some really talented team working on it. So thank you, everyone. We'll move on to item number 8, which is still related. This is a local contract review board Universal Plaza Design Contract Amendment. And Director Trimp, you're up again.
Hello again. And this action is to authorize a contract amendment for the RIOs for the Universal Plaza design. And this amendment is for $42,100, which, when executed, will be a total contract value of $1,151,820. Again, approval of this action will allow City Manager Reimer to execute the contract amendment.
All right, do we have a motion? Council President Lube.
I move to approve the amendment to the Universal Plaza design contract.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? City Recorder, roll call vote, please.
Councillor Shaw.
Yes.
Mayor Snyder.
Yes.
Councillor Goodhouse.
Yes.
Councillor Newton.
Yes.
Council President Lube.
Yes.
All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And we made up 5 minutes, so we're only 35 minutes behind. City Manager Reimer, what do you recommend?
I would recommend that we first take item number 10, which is the climate and community resiliency discussion. Okay. See how when we end that, and if the council is inclined to hear the CIP update, we can continue. Otherwise, we can move that to next week if needed.
Okay, let's move to item number 10, climate and community resilience discussion. Assistant City Manager Tritch and Director Asher.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the public. I am Assistant City Manager Emily Tritch. I'm joined by my co-lead for this council goal area, Director Kenny Asher. I want to thank Joe for letting me slip in here, and thank you all for your attention to this item this evening. So we are discussing Goal 3 around developing and implementing community resilience plan. which we've dubbed a climate action plan. This evening, we're not requesting action, but rather your feedback. Our hope is that Council will confirm the scope, scale, and schedule of our efforts in delivering Goal 3. And at the conclusion of this presentation, I'd like to ask you 3 things related to these items. Next slide, please, Mike. I wanted to acknowledge first that we have a very engaged community. Our public wants to do more, and they want more from their city in service to environmental sustainability and social equity. We've heard recently a desire for expanded recycling services, interest in preserving natural spaces, increased investment in walk, bike, roll, and transit projects, reducing single occupancy vehicle miles, and engagement of historically marginalized communities. This word cloud are just some of the things we heard from our Goal 3 website and from our various engagement efforts, including our 2 advisory committees. I want to, you can go back 1 slide, Mike, thank you. I did want to recognize City Council for taking initiative and pioneering this work around adoption of Goal 3. This first item around scope on the next slide now, Mike, thank you, is in an effort to focus and ensure we are delivering the greatest benefit to the community in line with Council, and so we don't lose sight of what it is we're trying to accomplish. So our proposal is to focus on activities aligned with carbon emissions reduction and building off of existing bodies of work. If you wouldn't mind hitting forward 1 more time, Mike. We'd like to strongly suggest that we work on disaster preparedness and hazard mitigation planning separate from this effort. So that's going to be related to our first question around scope, ensuring that our focus area is in line with your expectations. In the category of scale, we want to assure you that Council's commitment to being bold drives our recommendations. And we want to propose that the actions that are recommended are delivered at the scale to meet our target. The goal of becoming carbon neutral by 2035 is very ambitious. This target and the actions associated are, in fact, more aggressive than the state. The state's rules put Oregon on track to reduce emissions from fossil fuels by 50% by 2035 and 90% by 2050. Tigard's target is carbon neutrality citywide by 2035. I just want to give you an example of what that looks like in line with what you'll hear from our consultant in their presentation in late summer or early fall. So in 2028, which is less than 6 years from now, the recommendation is that all new buildings, both residential and non-residential, will be required to be built to net zero energy standard using highly efficient HVAC, LED lighting, and other low or zero energy options. The state target, by contrast, seeks to have residential and commercial buildings realize only a 60% reduction in energy consumption from the 2006 standard. So I just wanted to offer that you as framing. And then finally, related to the schedule element, we have committed to robust community engagement on this plan and developing this work within 1 year. We expect to hit that mark. We acknowledge, though, that this work is ongoing. The plan implementation, ongoing learning and partnership opportunities will continue through and likely beyond our target year of 2035. And so I will be asking you also to confirm that timing to make sure it aligns with your expectation. So just to recap a few questions for you. Our first question is confirming the scope of Goal 3, focusing on carbon reducing activities. The second question around scale of effort, I just want to make sure that we have a similar understanding of bold. And when we come to you with action items to deliver on that carbon neutrality by 2035 target, that it aligns with what you're expecting. And finally, though the council goal schedule is, I believe they're 2-year schedules in terms of when goals or a strategic plan is intended to demonstrate progress, that our intention is in fact to have this work be ongoing as we continue to work towards climate action, carbon reduction, and centering our vulnerable communities in that work. I'm happy to take any questions or reiterate our request for direction from you all.
So Emily, I guess I want to clarify, does that conclude the entire presentation, or is that a section and you're wanting feedback on the first section of your presentation?
That's all of it, unless there's additional information you'd like to hear.
No, I appreciate that. I was expecting it to be longer given the time on the schedule, but that means we've got lots of good time for discussion. So
yes.
Thank you. Council? We've got a request for feedback, and I'm sure we've got questions. Councillor Shaw, you've got particular expertise in this area, so let's have you start it off.
Yeah, thank you, Assistant City Manager Trish. I really appreciate the overview. I would be remiss to say I am not at all excited about question number 1. I think I've brought up many times in many of our meetings and in council meetings that emergency preparedness is key for a resiliency plan. It reduces costs because you have a mobility component with the climate action plan. If we actually were to plan it right, we could even do something around Universal Plaza, whether it's a emergency hub, because that's would be the center. But I am very concerned about number 1. I certainly think perhaps we can split out some of that. So it doesn't include, I think you had chemical and a couple other things in there. But I definitely think it should include emergency management. I think we've also heard from the police that we're woefully inadequate in our planning for the city. And so that would be number 1 for me, would not include the exclusion of the emergency preparedness. The second, I agree we should be bold. And the third, I think your question was 2035, was that year acceptable? And if so, I would say yes.
Thank you, Councillor.
Assistant City Manager Trich, do you want to comment at all on I'm intrigued by, it sounds like discussions that are happening in the work groups around the emergency preparedness stuff. So do you want to comment any more on that, or what? I mean, is there a professional recommendation, or how do you want to approach that?
I'd be happy to, thank you. So much of this work that's going on related to Goal 3 appears elsewhere throughout the city. A lot of this work is building upon existing efforts. For example, our work towards non-motorized vehicles can be found in the Transportation System Plan. Our access to nature, you'll remember from the Parks and Recreation System Plan, and things of that nature. I'm proud to say that our teammate, Mike Lewick, is an incredible lead and represents Tigard well in his work on the natural hazard mitigation planning efforts, coordinating with others across the region. We have a pretty substantial body of work already in development related to disaster preparedness and response. There is more work that can be done, certainly. Climate adaptation is one such category that we might want to think about in terms of making sure our infrastructure and our systems are resilient in the face of climate events. I'm happy to have our Goal 3 team continue to work and find that intersection with disaster planning and response. I just wanted to provide those comments.
All right, thank you. Other comments or questions, Councillor Goodhouse?
Councillor Shaw kind of stole my idea or comment as well, but the same thing with being resilient and so forth. I mean, the biggest part is when some of the buildings are being built, earthquake resistant, or places that people would get together. But if we take a look at City Hall, as far as I understand, I don't think we're set up to have backup services. I mean, if there's either staff there or public works there or the police department there, do we have an adequate supply of water, food, medical, first aid kits, bandages, things where if the public had to go there, or if those people were stuck there, is there enough resources there on hand to keep the city operating and moving forward, or a place for them to go? and throughout our buildings. So I don't think that we currently have enough of those supplies built up. There's always those public service announcements that talk about you should have so much water at your house, you should have so much food, you should have so many different things on hand. And us as a city, if we're talking about being resilient, that's one of the most things that can happen, whether or not there's an ice storm or an earthquake or anything like that, for us being prepared or being a resource for the community to come to. So I think that we need to look a lot more in depth about what we need to have, what we should have, talking to the departments, what we need to have on hand for staff, and what we need to have if the community came to us, and what we could get through on. Especially, I think if we have the, I know it's our duty as counselors that if we need to, with emergency, we need to report to City Hall. Is there enough stuff there, even let alone if we have to stay there for days or staff has to, a police department, is there places for people to sleep and et cetera? So I think we need to look at a thorough plan of that and be prepared.
All right. Other comments or questions?
And if there aren't any, maybe I can add a remark after Councilor Newton.
Okay, Councilor Newton.
Sorry, I was just going to concur with Councilor Shaw. I also think that the emergency preparedness component is important, and I agree with her positions on the other two questions. So make it short. Anyway, I do think emergency preparedness is important. So thanks.
All right, Council President Loop.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to jump in and say, yes, one of the things we were talking about today and leading through change and unknown is, you know, now we have a worldwide pandemic behind us. The next thing that we need to be prepared for is Cascadia, and that plays right into this as well as everything going on. I mean, this plan is incredibly important. For goodness sakes, we just had snow in April for the first time. We need to be bold and we need to have this change and to be prepared as a city. We owe it to everyone in the city to make sure that we're prepared.
Emily, can I let Youth Councilor Nog go first? Is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Youth Councilor Nog.
Yes, thank you. I know that we've worked on this presentation before, but I think weaving in different aspects of preparedness is really important as well, because a huge part of this climate, I was about to say climate epidemic, but climate emergency that's happening is already happening, and it's really hard to go back on something that's already happening, and it's going to continue to worsen. So if we don't start addressing that formally in policy, I don't think it'll be as efficient as we would have hoped it would have been.
All right. Assistant City Manager Tritch, you want to follow up with what you were going to share?
I just want to thank you very much for your feedback. This is exactly the sort of information we were hoping for, and it's well timed. We have our final Community Advisory Committee meeting on Thursday, and a few other engagement efforts. I just want to let you know that you'll be hearing from our consultant team during the summertime, and you could look forward to some really striking and exciting recommendations. Our consultant team that's worked with municipalities across the globe has said this might be the most ambitious target that they've worked on. So we are prepared to go bold and looking forward to bringing you some actionable recommendations. Thanks for your engagement late into the evening.
Well, thank you very much. Let's see.
I apologize, Mayor. Could I just, one other thought I thought about real quick on that.
Sure.
Have we reached out to the development community or the home builders or so forth to talk about how on track with all those expectations are? I just wanted to make sure that before we went too far that we've reached out to those different community members to see if that's also something attainable, if we're doing a more of an accelerated timeline over than what the state has.
Yes, in fact, we have one and maybe two developers on our Community Advisory Committee, and we will continue our engagement efforts, definitely. I might work with you, council members, separately to get some advice on other partners we might want to speak with. because just as it states in the goal, we want to ensure that the community is helping us to reach our target. It's a goal of the entire city. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, please do reach out. It'd be great to get some individual input on those.
All right, it is 8:52 p.m. The CIP presentation was scheduled to be 30 minutes. We probably have another 5 to 10 minutes of content after that. I think my personal preference, which we don't have to go with, is I've got early morning stuff and I'd probably rather move that. But does the rest of the council prefer to try to make it through, or what is your preference? I can be flexible.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Newton here, and out of respect to the teammates that present on that, I would prefer to move it as well. I like to be alert and, give them full attention. And if, the CIP presentation, it's important and it's not a one slide item. So just out of respect to the teams that put these presentations together, I think it unfortunately would be better to move it to another date. Thanks.
Anyone, any other member of the council disagree with that or want to hear it tonight? City Manager Reimers, this is not going to cause a major issue if we delay it. Did you look at how far out it would need to be delayed?
We delayed 1 week. We have a lighter agenda next week, so I'll work with Carol to move it on to next week's agenda before we publish it.
Okay, thank you. I think that's excellent. And well, we had no non-agenda items. City Manager Reimer, do you have an administrative report?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for a good meeting tonight, Mayor, councilors, and all of our teammates, as well as the consultants that were there, and your support for the transformative Universal Plaza. As all of you have said, it's going to be a great project. I want to start by touching base on a few police department items. And the first one is congratulations to Lieutenant Neil Charlton, who graduated from the FBI National Academy recently. So kudos to him. It's my understanding that the 3-month-long executive leadership is only 1% of police officers in the country attend that. So kudos to him for attending that school. Also on Thursday night, which April 14th, our police department will receive the reaccreditation certificate from the state. And so this is our first time going through that process. We had to be in compliance with 106 standards. And so as we've talked about our police department at PSAB and other venues, we're proud of how we do things and what we do. I think this is just one more example of the chief's leadership, as well as the leadership of all of our officers and teammates in the police department. So congratulations to all of them. Walk and Roll to School Day is back. That's always great to hear. So schools in Tigard and Tualatin are participating in that on May 4th. This is just another way, obviously, of demonstrating, get the word out, how important safe routes to school are for walking, mobility, bicycling, and just all the things that go from non-motorized access and safety for our kids. So it's great to see that that's going to be happening. Our Main Street, Green Street, Phase 2 is going to start up on April 18th, so just around the corner here. We will be communicating with the downtown in a variety of ways. Downtown businesses will also be advertising to the community and others to let them know that we are open for business downtown, and try to continue to make sure that all of our businesses along that street and others are attended, or people attend those during the construction. So thanks to the team for moving that forward. And just a few updates from our great library as well. Saturday, March 19th, we saw 698 people exactly, which is the highest number of patrons that we've seen since we've reopened our doors. So the demand is there, and thanks to the team for continuing to keep stats. Another stat is 500 TTSD students who had their new library accounts have used their accounts to check out different supplies. The leading schools are Mary Woodward Elementary and Deer Creek Elementary. So not only do we know how many students, but also what schools are coming from. I know the mayor had asked about that earlier as well. And then we always like to share things from those that visit the library and the reactions we get. We had a returning patron learn about our automatic renewal service, as well as our no more overdue charges. And she just basically replied, beautiful. And so it's just nice to be able to people enjoy our services and enjoy the steps that we're taking. So that concludes my remarks for tonight, and I appreciate the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager Reimer. Councilor Goodhouse, did you have a comment or a question? You've got your hand up. I don't know if that was from before.
Yes, I have a question. Thank you. So City Manager Reimer, on the Main Street, Green Street 2, I know that we were waiting, I think, on piping or something like that for the project. So is it full? Is the construction starting on that date, full construction and full steam ahead, or is it? Because I've heard our businesses have heard different things as far as it's delayed. It's going to start later. It's delayed for indefinite amount of time. So is it on track to now start on that date as it was before?
Let me see if Joe can answer that. Joe, are you able to answer that question specifically on the project?
Sorry, can you repeat the project's question again?
The question was, is the project for the date that City Manager Reimer gave, and then if you could repeat that date as well, that'd be great. I missed the date. But
Main Street,
is the project
Green Street, Phase 2, Joe.
Yeah, thank you. We're actually working on a communication piece to come out right now. Our contractor just informed us that they're ready to mobilize as early as next week and start some of the storm sewer work. The contract terms, they have up to 12 months to finish that work from their notice to proceed, which they're already 2 months into that. So about 10 months from now is the limit of their contract. But yes, as early as next week, you might see some mobilization taking place out there.
Oh, and so then the piping that we were waiting on, we have that piping now, because I think that's what was holding the project up.
Yes, that's correct. There was some supply chain issues, and they have all the storm sewer materials now procured, and they're ready to start.
Joe, to Councilor Goodhouse's point, I think there's been enough back and forth. Don't know when it's going to happen. Unpredictable supply chain. Don't know when we're going to get the materials. That I would strongly suggest the city communications team activate doubly whatever they were planning to do initially to make sure that that's well communicated, well coordinated, and that nobody in downtown is surprised.
Yeah, so the communication plan is going to include some boots on the ground. They're actually going to go door to door and hand out some flyers. And then throughout the project, our project manager is going to be out there and give a 2-week look ahead on the schedule all the way throughout the entire project. So there will be definitely door to door updates to all the businesses.
Okay, and I assume all the we're open for business signs during construction and all that.
That is correct.
Okay. Councilor
Yeah,
Goodhouse,
I appreciate that.
follow-ups?
No, I appreciate that. Mayor, you hit that nail on the head. Was with all the confusion, a lot thought it was going to start till later, and some events have been planned, and they were thinking, oh, it's not going to be for months. So the robust communication with everyone's going to be really important.
All right, City Manager Reimer, you had concluded your report, correct?
Correct, Mayor.
All right, it is 9 o'clock on the nose, and is there a motion for adjournment?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
I couldn't find the hand, so I thought I'd just speak up.
Same.
Fine. All right. Been moved and seconded. City Recorder, roll call vote, please.
Councilor Shaw,
Yes.
Mayor Snyder,
Yes.
Councilor Goodhouse,
Yes.
Councilor Newton,
Yes.
Council President Lube.
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned. Good night, Tigard.
Right.
Night.
Good night.